there's one very important factor to this video that will make it one of the most unique reviews for Star Wars Outlaws. That title is not a lie. I have never seen Star Wars before. I didn't really grow up with those movies, and I never felt the desire to watch them in my teen years or as an adult now. The only thing I know about Star Wars are the viral internet memes about having the high ground or unlimited power, or from Family Guy's Blue Harvest.
Sorry, been building up for a while.
So going into this video, assume that I know nothing about Star Wars universe, and enjoy watching someone dive face first into pretty much everything, sometimes literally. I'll be playing it with a fresh perspective and no prior attachment to the source material, and simply judging it on is it a good game, and am I having fun? So I made a cup of Rogue Energy to get a healthy boost of energy, which by the way, you can use code Mr. J for 20% off your order, link in the description down below. So I sat down at my computer, put my headphones on, and I was ready to get immersed. Gamer mode was officially activated. But the biggest question this video aims to answer is Nix really that adorable? Yes, he is. That's the entire review. Buy the game just for Nix. Okay, thanks, bye. But the question this video aims to answer is, can someone who has never seen Star Wars before enjoy Star Wars Outlaws? And thanks to Ubisoft, by the way, for providing me with access to this game and its content. This review would not be possible without them sending me a key to play it early and make this review. But don't worry, I am not paid or incentivized to say nice things or inflate their EP. If I have negative things to say about the game, I will not shy away from that. This review will contain no spoilers to the story or the plot of the game other than my thoughts on the story. However, I will be talking about the gameplay and various aspects of it like the planets or player progression through items and gadgets or abilities. But I will be announcing a spoiler warning before I talk about stuff like that though, just in case there's anyone out there like me that is pretty sensitive to spoilers. This isn't some speedrun review just to get the story finished and drop the game. In fact, my first playthrough of Star Wars Outlaws, I had a playtime of almost 45 hours when most people that I saw online were claiming it was only like 20 to 30 hours for a playthrough. I just want to experience as much of the game as many of you will, by just enjoying the game without rushing to try and make some embargo deadline to maximize views. That being said though, because I did take my time to make this review, I will likely not be releasing it on time with the launch of the game. So if you do enjoy the style of video and you do enjoy this video in particular, giving it a like and a comment as well will help this video out with the almighty YouTube algorithm, and I would greatly appreciate that. But let's just say that Ubisoft is trying something new with Outlaws, and I am 100% on board. Star Wars Outlaws is the newest game from Ubisoft. And today I'm going to be showing you how Outlaws is taking a big step in a new direction for all future Ubisoft open world games. So whatever preconceived notions that you have about Ubisoft, take them and throw them right out the window. Outlaws was developed by Massive Entertainment, the people behind the Division games, which are some of the best cover shooter games we've seen since frickin' Gears of War. And if you've played those games before, you know that there's one major thing that Massive does extremely well, and it's crafting a beautiful world that grounds the player in an experience. And their collaboration with LucasArts Games meant that they would have access to as much Star Wars related stuff as basically any nerd could possibly dream of. But I think people are more worried about Ubisoft's track record of making checklist-style open-world games with like hundreds of map markers all over the place. But rest assured that Outlaws is a massive change for Ubisoft. And if they use these changes for future Ubisoft titles, like Assassin's Creed Shadows or Far Cry 7, we could be seeing some of the biggest changes to Ubisoft's formula since they stopped adding towers into every Far Cry game in Far Cry Primal back in 2016. Or since the pretty divisive change to make Assassin's Creed a loot game with Origins. Star Wars Outlaws is a single-player, action-adventure RPG light. That's a new term that I'm going to be using to describe games that give you a choice for gear, abilities, skills, or even dialogue, but these choices may or may not actually affect the outcome of the story or world events, and they typically do not offer a full character creator. Outlaws is also the very first truly open-world Star Wars game ever, and it uses the technical marvel, the absolute beefcake of an engine rivaling the top dogs like Unreal Engine, Decima, and the in-house engines they use for God of War Ragnarok and The Last of Us. The engine they use is called Snowdrop. Star Wars Outlaws chronologically takes place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, which I have no idea what those are, but I do know that they are the 80s. So that explains the hair. So let's talk about the gameplay of Star Wars Outlaws. Like, what kind of game is it? How does it play? And what can you do in the game? Well, as I mentioned earlier, Outlaws is an open-world action-adventure RPG light. So the gameplay of Outlaws can be summarized as if Tomb Raider, Starfield, Assassin's Creed, Horizon Forbidden West, Far Cry, and Fallout had a baby together in a galaxy far, far away. That's a lot of games, and it's a really interesting yet delightful combination of each of those games. And so if you do like any of those games that I just mentioned, there's a very big chance you will actually enjoy this game as well. Outlaws does a great job of making you feel like you can go anywhere, and during my playthrough I never really felt like the game was tiny, but it's not going to be a game where you put like 200 or 300 hours into it to see every little detail the game has to offer. Outlaws does borrow mechanics from each of these games and does it very well. You'll be exploring the vast open areas, using your speeder to, well, speed around the map, using your toolkit to open locked doors for secret loot, hacking through terminals to get useful data. You'll be sneaking through enemy locations like Kronk in the Emperor's New Groove, or maybe you're the Terminator going in guns blazing, throwing grenades, shooting explosive canisters, picking up enemy weapons to use against them until your adrenaline rush meter fills up, and then you just unleash your inner High Noon aimbot all over their frickin' faces. You'll also be going elbow deep into random caves that you find, using different tools to solve different environmental puzzles, and using your incredible upper body strength and plot armor to leap from ledge to ledge. All of this while your trusty partner in crime Nyx is right there to help pick up the loot, drop down ladders, hold open vents, or ferociously attack enemies like a frickin' facehugger, or even distracting enemies with his cuteness by playing dead.
Bang! Nice one, pal.
And even though these mechanics might not be completely revolutionary, a lot of them are done really, really well. The lockpicking in Outlaws is something that I have actually never really seen before. You can pick locks by using the data spike, matching the beat, and pressing the button when you hear the beep. There are different difficulties of locks as well, which can be seen by the color of the metal piece up here, and the other metal piece on the bottom as well. There's white, yellow, and red locks. Some of these get pretty difficult for someone who is, well, as rhythmically challenged as myself.
Easy one.
But fear not, my fellow groove-deficient people. There's also a setting that you can turn on in the options menu that will give you visual indicators of the beeps as a ring to make it easier, or another setting you can turn on to completely disable this minigame in general. So if all of that sounds like nails on a chalkboard, you can just turn it off. Thankfully, in most cases, the game does make it worth the effort and time with the loot that is typically in these locked areas, so I never really found myself like eye-rolling like, ugh, when I saw a new locked door. Instead, I actually was like, ooh, piece of candy, and instantly derailed my current thought process to crack open that loot pinata. And like I mentioned earlier, Outlaws does borrow the terminal hacking mechanic from the Fallout games, but not a direct copy and paste. The terminal hacking in Outlaws is called slicing, and it is actually pretty fun, but I'd say that it could use a bit more. Basically, you just select any to save myself some time, to save you some time, it's Wordle. I apparently had never heard of Wordle when I was writing the script before, but it's Wordle. That's how the puzzle works. If you don't get the correct symbols in the correct order before this red line here, then you, something dark side. And eventually you can actually get upgrades for a lot of the mechanics that I mentioned before to either add more variety, make things easier, or just making things a lot cooler. Like the combat. At first, it's very basic, where you just have the blaster and maybe grenades, so you just click on heads. But as you progress through the game, you can upgrade your blaster to shoot faster, reduce the heat buildup, or improve the damage that you deal with each shot. Plus, there's different firing modes you can unlock for the blaster. Some of them are required for specific enemies or solving specific puzzles, so you will actually have that variance in the gameplay by switching between the different firing modes mid-combat or mid-exploration. Now, I'll be talking more about the blaster modules in depth, so if you actually don't want spoilers on the upgrades available for the blaster, skip to this time here. You have been warned.
These are module parts compatible with your blaster. Your VM-19 is crude, but highly customizable.
It's not crude, it's vintage.
So your blaster has 3 different modules that are acquired at different points in the story. You have the standard plasma module, which fires traditional plasma bolts. You have the ion module, which fires ionized particles. And then you have the power module. This one fires a heavy plasma bolt that explodes on impact. And again, you can swap between these different modules on the fly mid-combat as well. Each of these configurations will change how the blaster feels and handles pretty drastically, I found, and you can choose which one fits your preferred playstyle. So in combat, the enemies will drop the weapons that they're actually using on the ground, allowing you to pick them up, and you can use them for a limited time with the limited ammo that they actually have. They're also available and scattered throughout the different areas of the world as well, and these weapons that you pick up are super strong. But Massive made a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. Outlaws does not actually give you a huge array of weapons to keep and use at your leisure. Your only permanent firearm is the blaster. So the gunplay for some people will get a bit stale after a while, and even though your blaster is customizable, which helps the combat and the exploration feel a bit new from time to time, I can't help but feel like the decision to not let the player keep some of the weapons that we get from the enemies, or like not to be able to loot weapons from chests, will be one of the biggest critiques that people will actually have for this game. But the decision does allow the weapons you pick up to remain sort of like a power weapon, and during my playthrough I really only picked these weapons up if I was facing a metric butt ton of enemies and needed to tip the scales. You'll get that when you play the game. Or for the stealthy scoundrels out there like myself, the stealth combat is also pretty basic in the beginning. It's just sneak up behind the enemy, press button, enemy go down. Just don't get caught and it's pretty much GG. The enemies in the beginning are not as blind as in Skyrim when you have your sneak tree maxed out though. They can and will see you and hear you from across the room. But further into the game, you can upgrade your stealth to where they won't hear you giving their friend a nice hit of beef stew right to the frickin' mouth.
What's that noise?
Outlaws does have a large amount of variety for stealth gameplay. You can get pretty creative with the ways to conceal yourself in order to actually stealth around certain environments. Some enemy bases will have buttons to push that will activate steam vents that you can use to conceal yourself in convenient locations near enemy hotspots, while some other areas will have tall vegetation to hide in, even if it's placed in some pretty weird and unlikely spots. You can also send Nix to trigger explosives, turn off alarms, drop down ladders, attack enemies, or use him as a distraction. And whoever at Massive made the decision that Nix shouldn't disrupt our stealth, you deserve a promotion and a frickin' cookie. But on top of that, your blaster is equipped with a stun shot that can be used to take out a single target stealthily, from a range as well. However, it is not perfectly silent like using a bow in Skyrim, so if you have 2 guards right next to each other, the other guard that you don't shoot will notice and start searching for you and not blame it on the wind for flinging an arrow through his friend's skull. And as you get later into the game, you can unlock even more features that let you be a dang ninja, literally running around sprint tackling stormtroopers from the shadows, or doing a dive from the top rope and slamming their face into the ground. It's at this point where the stealth goes from fun and enjoyable but kind of basic to feeling amazing and just hilarious. But Outlaws also has space combat as well. And while at first I was a bit iffy on the combat, I think now that I've spent more time in space, the combat feels a lot more fluid and natural to me. The space combat is fast, aggressive, and chaotic, just the way that I like it. But here's where I'm going to go over more of the ship upgrades in detail, so if you don't want spoilers on the upgrades for the ship, skip to this time here. You have been warned. Again. Now normally I am not a fan of space combat in games, but Outlaws seems to have nailed it. It just feels arcadey but fun. And your ship has 3 weapons on it. Each of these can be upgraded just like the blaster can. You have the cannons, missiles, and turrets. Cannons and missiles have 3 different variations you can choose from, and the turrets only have 2. Each of these variations can be upgraded just like the blaster configurations can be. Alongside those, you also have the option to upgrade the engine, shield, and the hull, but these are more of a straightforward upgrading path. You can change your ship's weapons at any time, and each of these have a different purpose, or will help you in certain situations. And certain areas of space can actually disable some of your ship's abilities. I went into one area of space where there was this like frozen ice cloud nebula that made it super hard to see in, but also disabled my lock-on rockets as well. But you might be wondering, what else is there to do in space besides just fight stuff? Well, one of the main things to do in space is to scan for cargo containers that you can use to get upgrade materials, collectibles, and other items. But there are quests and contracts that require you to go out in space to go take out a target or collect something for someone. Plus, there's a few space stations you can find and enter as well, and there's random events that can spawn in where someone will ask for your help.
Trailblazer, come in. You're on our records as a friendly vessel. Can you assist us? You will be rewarded. I don't know what we did to earn your trust.
Money!
So I would say that space in this game is a great mixture of necessity and fun, but I also don't want to give you the wrong idea that you can explore for ages in any direction. Space does have a limited area just like on the ground, but in the same way that I mentioned before, that you don't really feel those boundaries, at least I rarely did in my playthrough. But whether it's in space or on the ground, if you get caught running around slapping big white Imperial butts, you get a bounty placed on you, which means you become wanted. The wanted system in this game is honestly incredibly fun and makes the game really tense the higher up you go in wanted level. The more chaos that you cause, the higher your wanted level goes up. And there are 6 different wanted levels in the game. But if you don't want to learn too much detail about the wanted system, skip to this time here. Thou hast been warned if. So the early wanted levels start by sending more troopers to your last known location to search for you and then arrest you. It's pretty simple and easy to avoid these ones, but then after like wanted level 3 or 4, you start getting these Imperial laser beam roadblocks that will block almost every road that you go down, and there's just a bigger general presence of Imperials around the areas looking for you. And then when you hit wanted level 6, let me tell you, this game does not play around at wanted level 6. I was almost white knuckling on my speeder the whole time, acting like I just escaped from a maximum security freaking prison. Wanted level 6 is basically like Need for Speed Most Wanted from 2005, with the Imperial roadblocks everywhere, Imperial ships landing down blocking the roads and dropping off even more troopers, Imperials on speeders chasing you for just miles it feels like, and then finally it all concludes with a squad of freaking death troopers, whatever the heck those are, which is just insane because normally at wanted 5 and below you can just find one of those corrupted Imperial officers around the map and pay them to remove your bounty, but not on wanted level 6. At level 6, the only way to clear the bounty and get the white hot heat off of you is to fully clear out the death trooper squad and their officers. But during all of this, you cannot fast travel, everything shuts down, and every road is covered with Imperial soldiers. And like, I've never seen Star Wars, right? So when I was just goofing around taking stormtroopers lunch money, I was watching the wanted level go higher and higher, not really thinking much of it, when all of a sudden it says in big red bold letters,
Manhunt launched.
and I was like, manhunt doesn't sound too bad. But then I saw my objective switch to again a big red bold lettered message saying Death Trooper Squad, and it told me to reach the Death Troopers.
Look out, Kay. The Empire is sending its best after you. Kay, those are Death Troopers. They're in a class of their own.
I think I had the ultimate experience for all of this as well, though, because I was in a massive jungle area in the late evening time, so it was getting dark. And on top of that, it was raining super hard in the game, so I entered Super Ninja mode and began sneaking my way over to the Death Troopers. And I saw that they were dressed in an all-black Stormtrooper outfit with bits of armor on the pauldrons, so I was a bit relieved thinking that they would just be a regular Stormtrooper clone. But remember when I said to bring your brown pants with you? This is what the Death Troopers friggin' sound like. They sound like friggin' demons. It's terrifying. And like when you try to distract them with Nyx, they friggin' sprint over to Nyx's location instead of a lazy jaunt over like the regular stormtroopers do. And they don't get distracted for anywhere near as long as the regular troopers do. They have tons more health and they deal insane damage to you. It's like one full bar for every shot they hit you with. And on top of that, their hearing is like whatever animal has really, really good hearing. Because I tried to just sneak past them and grab the key card from the officer in the camp, and they instantaneously heard me and murdered the crap out of me. This only gets better when you have a syndicate who hates you like I did. Like, I've never heard of any of these syndicates before, and I basically chose to say screw you to the Pike Syndicate the entire game, and so my reputation with them was terrible. Literally, it said the word terrible. And what I didn't realize about my amazing choice to give the Pike Syndicate the middle finger the entire game is that when you have a terrible reputation with a syndicate, they actually hate you. And when a syndicate hates you, they will send a squad to go after you and kill you, as well as instantly shooting you on sight if they see you in their areas out in the world. Ultimately, I had dozens of Imperials chasing my butt down the street while aggroing literally every single Pike that I drove past, making them also shoot at me and chase me. All of that while dodging laser roadblocks and Imperial ships. When I was sure that I was safe, I would then pursue the Death Trooper squad on foot. And how did I manage to beat the Death Troopers? Well, like any Ultra God Mode Pro gamer guy, I hid behind a big ass rock. I hid behind a big rock and I just spammed the heavy explosive rounds until they were all dead. It was incredible.
That was totally wicked!
Now, I keep mentioning crime syndicates or the Pikes in general, but what exactly are syndicates in Outlaws? I'm sure this is all in the movies and stuff like that, but because I've never seen them and I don't know much about Star Wars, I had to figure out that syndicates are basically different crime families. However, in this game, they almost felt like typical RPG version of like factions. And if you don't want spoilers on syndicates in Outlaws, you know the drill. Skip to this time, Ramya. Been warned you have. I'm sorry, that was terrible. That was a terrible Yoda impression. That was such a bad Yoda impression. Listen, I think that was Yoda. I don't know. So in Outlaws, there's 4 crime syndicates that rule the underworld. Crimson Dawn, the Pike Syndicate, the Hutt Cartel, and the brand new Melito Hive-based Ashia clan. Melito? One of those. Each syndicate has their own territories, underbosses, and reputation system in the game as well. And as you play the game, you will get to choose which syndicate you want to side with and which ones you want to completely screw over. And like I mentioned, I made the choice to just completely dumpster the Pike Syndicate the entire time, basically, while siding with the Crimson Dawn the most. But how do you build up reputation with each syndicate? Well, the game actually offers a multitude of ways to increase or decrease your syndicate reputation. There are specific syndicate quests that you will get that revolve around you performing a job for that syndicate. There's also contract brokers that will give you contracts in the game that are directly tied to gaining money and reputation with a certain syndicate. And throughout the main story, they will give you a bunch of different choices where you have to choose which syndicate you want to side with in a given mission. But not all missions seem to give you a direct choice, especially when it's part of the main quest. But the benefits to increasing your reputation with a syndicate are actually pretty awesome. But essentially, there's 5 different rep levels with a syndicate. Excellent, good, poor, bad, and terrible. You start out with a poor reputation for each syndicate and have to climb your way up to the excellent reputation at the top. So starting out at the poor reputation, it's very basic. You cannot go into specific territories owned by that syndicate without being shot at or thrown out, and they will give you a chance at some of the jobs they offer, but not all of them, not the good jobs. Then if you have a good rep with that syndicate, you are allowed into their territory, but you will get in trouble for stealing their stuff. Found that one out the hard way. They will now give you more jobs as well, and any merchant that is affiliated with that specific syndicate gives you a discount. However, having an excellent reputation is largely the same, but now you can take whatever the heck you want while in their territories. You get the best jobs that pay way more credits. You get access to exclusive items at merchants affiliated with that syndicate, and you get a couple more items gifted to you. And then if you manage to reach the maximum reputation with the syndicate, you get an exclusive armor set. We will go into the armor sets here in a little bit, but what happens if you lose reputation with a faction? Having a bad reputation with a syndicate means that they genuinely just don't like you and don't want to work with you, so the contract jobs they give you kind of suck, and their merchants raise their price for you specifically. But having a terrible reputation with the syndicate is what really sucks. Not only do the syndicate affiliated merchants jack up the prices heavily, contract brokers will also give you even less work for less pay, basically just the scraps. But also, to what I mentioned earlier, the syndicate leader literally hates you, so they will send kill squads to take you out until you get back on their freaking good side. The game also does an excellent job at helping you keep track of each contract broker that you find and each syndicate merchant that you find and what syndicate they are actually affiliated with. Overall though, I loved the syndicate system in this game. I only wish there was more that you could do with the syndicate, similar to how in Skyrim you can actually become the leader of the Thieves Guild, but I'm sure that would have broken parts of the story or the universe in this game in some way. But that being said, I really enjoy this mechanic. But what about the item rewards you can get from each syndicate that I mentioned earlier? Are they really worth getting the maximum level for? Find out at the end of this sentence, because this is the spoiler warning for gear and equipment in the game.
Luke, you have been warned.
Man, these are getting dumb, considering I have no clue what the heck I'm talking about. So first, I need to say that I was super shocked to find out that this game actually has armor sets with set bonuses. I was expecting the clothes to be like cosmetic options that you could change with no real gameplay impact, but no. The armor that you wear makes a huge difference to how the game feels and how you play. And honestly, the Syndicate-specific armor sets are some of the best in the game depending on your play style. That's pretty huge for a game of this style. The set bonuses on armor reward you for having all 3 pieces of an armor set equipped, and if you have a Syndicate armor set on, they also give you another bonus for being above a certain reputation level for that Syndicate. So for example, like I said, I chose to side with the Crimson Dawn the entire game. I blame Alira, she was too alluring. But when I reached the maximum reputation with Crimson Dawn, I unlocked their Crimson Rain gear, not to be mistaken for a Crimson Rain deer. That would be adorable. Each armor piece has 2 perks on it, and they all contribute to the overall set bonus. And when I put on all 3 pieces, I unlocked the Crimson Rain set bonuses. The first bonus says that enemies caught within a smoke bomb now recharge my stun shot. And the second bonus that I get from having a high enough reputation with them says hitting an enemy with a stun shot resets the cooldown for my smoke bomb. So those 2 bonuses, plus the bonuses from each of my armor pieces, let me actually have a really great synergy. So it's very clearly a stealth-focused set from a stealth-focused Syndicate. At least I think that's what the Crimson Dawn's supposed to be. So it was perfect for what I wanted to actually focus on. And that's how powerful all of the gear sets in this game seem to be. But that's not all. In Outlaws, they also give you these slots for items called charms. Charms are little trinkets that give you even more bonuses to enhance your playstyle. You can find them out in the world or get them from your Syndicate rewards as well. There are 2 different types of charms, major charms and minor charms. Minor charms have 1 bonus that can be anything from being harder to detect, gaining more adrenaline, or reducing fall damage. You're gonna need that one, trust me. But major charms can have 2 bonuses on them. If they only have 1 bonus, it's usually because it's a super strong bonus to make up for only having 1 bonus versus 2. But here's the best part. Nyx isn't just there to sit and look cute. You can actually equip items to him that let him perform different as well. They're called Nyx Treats, and each of them are fundamentally different. Like for example, one of them lets Nyx distract multiple enemies at the same time, but his range of distraction is significantly shorter. Or another one lets Nyx automatically kick grenades away from you. And to conclude the Vince McMahon meme of cool features that we've been doing here, the armor in this game has transmog. So if you want to wear your fancy Syndicate armor for the stats, but use your big fancy deluxe edition skins to be Han Solo, at least I think that's who that is, you can. There's no need to look like a dork unless you want to. But honestly, I really enjoyed the gear system in this game, and I feel like the only change that I would make would be to have more random gear spawning from loot chests, but that's just my loot addiction talking. It's honestly great where it's at. And to build on top of that, you have abilities in this game that act as another form of character progression. This is basically your skill tree system, but the way it's designed is so much more player-friendly than traditional skill trees. But how does it work in Outlaws? Find out on the next episode of Ball War Z. Wait. Star Ball Z! No, that's not it. Wait, I got it. Dragon War Z! Yeah, that's the one. Which is right after the sentence. Click here to avoid ability spoilers. So in Outlaws, the ability requirements can be unlocked in pretty much any order. So if you're wanting to only pick up 1 ability from the list, you can actually focus on the requirements for that specific ability and do them whenever you want. And even the requirements to unlock that ability can be completed in any order as well. And as long as you progress through the game, you will encounter new characters that are experts at one thing, and after getting to know them or doing a quest for that expert, they become another person you can learn abilities from. It gives you the sense that your character is actually learning new things from the people that she encounters in the game and the quests they take you on. Each of their quests that you'll go on is typically themed after the abilities or lessons that they will teach you. I will say I am seriously impressed by the abilities in this game. Some of them are basic stat boosts, yes, but some of them are huge enhancements to useful mechanics, or game-changing abilities. Like the electroshock prod, when you unlock this ability, you can now perform stealth takedowns on elite enemies like droids, death troopers, and Jabba's big scaly piggy wiggies. Or the other one that I unlocked later in the game lets Nyx actually detonate grenades on enemies, so you could literally make them just all explode in a group. It's fantastic. And really quickly, I want to make a special note of how this game does one of the best jobs at truly explaining the game to the player. It's not hand-holding the player, it's not telling them exactly where to go or what to do, but instead, it's giving you the extra info to understand the concepts easier, or giving you the extra hints to nudge you in the right direction. And that kind of mentality is used for everything in the game. While other games say this item is junk or this item has no value to tell the player that it's okay to sell the item because it's not actually used in the game, Outlaws will tell the player this item has no use and is safe to sell to a merchant for credits, with an additional icon stating safe to sell next to it. If an item has a potential chance to be used later on in a quest, it is labeled as a quest item specifically, and the description will state that the item can be sold for credits, but it could also have some use later on. This really helps people like myself, who have grown trust issues believing games telling me what is and isn't valuable. They still make you go and find the item or find the merchant who sells the parts that you need. All they tell you is something like, you can find this part at any merchant with deep connections to the underworld, and you have to go from there.
What was that?
But now let's talk about the world of Star Wars Outlaws. This is the first fully open world Star Wars game, and the first question that I had when I heard that was, what kind of open world are they going for? Because Borderlands, God of War Ragnarok, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider could be looked at as an open world game with the fact that you can explore chunks of the game world and traverse through any of them anytime. Or maybe Outlaws was going for that Red Dead Redemption 2, Horizon Forbidden West, Far Cry 6, Assassin's Creed Valhalla style open world, where the map is so massive it makes you say, "Dank Ferric."
Dank Ferric. Dank Ferric. Oh, Dank Ferric. Oh, Dank Ferric.
Letting us ADHDers get lost by every single new icon, quest giver, or cool looking rock that we see along our path to the next main quest. And while it's a bit of a mixture, it's closer to the Borderlands and God of War Ragnarok style with a bit of Skyrim and Fallout in there as well. But of course, before I go into detail about the world of Outlaws, if you don't want to know more and you want to explore it all when you get the game, go ahead and skip to this time here to skip this section. So in Outlaws, you have 4 planets to explore. Well, 3 actually, because one is technically a moon, guys, I guess. You have Toshara the moon, Tatooine, not sure if you say the E on the end of that, Kajimi, and Akiva. Each planet moon thing has its own environment and visuals. Now, not all of them are the same size, but you know what they say, it's not the size of the map that matters, it's how you use each square mile. They're all extremely beautiful and well crafted in their own way as well. It's amazing. Toshara is a savanna-based biome with these huge epic mountains that look like they're straight from a FromSoft game, and giant swirling gem-like structures growing through the mountains and showing up all over the planet. It has huge fields of grass and trees swaying in the wind, and tons of caves and caverns to explore, and you will see the planet that Toshara orbits around in the sky as well. It's absolutely gorgeous. Now, Tatooine, I remember the name from Family Guy's Blue Harvest, but that's about it. In Outlaws, Tatooine is gorgeous, and you can actually tell it was handcrafted with love like all of the other worlds. It's a massive desert with big rocky canyons, extra large sand dunes, which you should be careful around, and not a drop of water in sight. It's incredibly gorgeous, especially because this place has 2 suns like I believe it has in the movies, and it actually has sand that deforms when you walk through it, and I just love stuff like that. I love little details like that. Now, I don't know how it was in the movies, but most of the map of Tatooine isn't filled with a ton of stuff. but that also seems to be the point. It's a desert, so it's going to feel empty, and everyone seemed to talk about how dangerous it is to explore on Tatooine and how hard it was to survive the heat or lack of water, so it would make sense that there are large areas of basically nothing. But now Akiva is the complete opposite. I have no idea if this planet was in the movies or not, but in Outlaws it is apparently just like Florida. It's a hot and humid planet with giant bodies of water, flowing rivers everywhere. The landscape and its foliage is lush and dense. There is no real shortage of green on Akiva, and it is constantly raining. I love it on this planet. And finally we have Kijimi. The entire planet is cold, icy, with a ton of snow everywhere. Even though it's the smallest explorable area in the game, it truly didn't feel like it. The streets were packed with secret areas or climbing spots, but of course it's farting cold outside, so most of the people on Kijimi are indoors, either at the cantina or in one of the card rooms or some other place. And the detail they put into this area is just nuts. The cobblestone pathways, the canals of water and ponds that I still cannot believe aren't actually frozen, the warm glow of the street lamps, and the fluffy white snow that you can actually deform when you or Nyx walk into it. The aesthetic of this area is honestly incredible, and excluding Kijimi, each of these worlds has a main city with a ton of explorable area outside of that. And the rest of the world has that secret sauce that makes my brain just produce the happy juices. So while exploring outside the main cities, there are events that can happen randomly. I've seen civilian camps being raided by pirates. I've also seen pirate camps being raided by Imperials to get their stolen loot back. There are small little towns bustling with activity, like people riding on speeders, eating at a diner, having conversations, performing maintenance on their speeders, or just hanging out. Outlaws loves to hide things all over the world, and sometimes when you explore, you can find little Easter eggs. One of the Easter eggs I found was a secret Roomba dance party in a hidden side room I found completely by accident. I was just trying to climb on some boxes, and my character started walking through the gap between the boxes. This was also the moment that I found out you can shimmy between small gaps like in Tomb Raider. But once I was on the other side, I found a small vent that led me to a room with flashing rainbow lights, music playing, and these little Roomba droids moving around. I have no idea what these droids are called, but they're cute. This genuinely made me smile though, because I love Easter eggs like this in games. It shows the devs had fun while making the game. And one of the other amazing Easter eggs I found in the game was a hidden side closet. It was inside of an Imperial base. What I found was what looked to be either a droid murder, or maybe these two droids were getting spicy and putting their hard drives into USB ports. I don't know, but it was fantastic. And no matter where you go, Massive's expertise shines through. Like, for example, Miragana is a city built into the mountainside on Toshara. And because Amberine, I think that's Amberine, runs deep within the mountains, they have actually created Amberine walls and pillars and different accent pieces within the city. Or in Kijimi, because a lot of the city is built again within the mountains, they use a lot of natural stonework for their buildings as well. Tatooine has skeletons scattered all over the wasteland due to the extreme heat and ferocious wildlife. Akiva has water canals flowing within the city streets and is overgrown with plants and vines and all that crazy plant stuff. And no matter where I went in the game, no matter how close I got, no matter how much I explored, I rarely found anything that wasn't handcrafted with love. I was constantly blown away by the small details they managed to pack into each area, like the pebbles blowing across the dirt streets on Toshara. The large sand-covered areas of Tatooine look realistic with their natural deformation. It isn't just a simple texture with a wave pattern in place. They actually use advanced terrain tessellation with parallax occlusion mapping to create some of the most realistic sand I've seen in a game. As you walk through the sand, it will deform to both yours and Nyx's footsteps, dodge rolling, speeder driving, smoke bombs, grenades. Then it will even react differently to each type of blaster fire. And the same can be said for Kijimi's snow-covered streets. It's not just some sparkly white texture, it has a fluffy white pillowy look to it and will deform as you walk through it. Even down to the game's micro details, like Kay will glisten with sweat on Tatooine, but only when she's out in the sun. Kay's clothing will get covered in a thin layer of snow when she's outside on Kijimi, but when she goes inside, her breath is still slightly visible for a period of time, and the snow will slowly melt away off of her clothing. When she's on Akiva, her hair gets more flat and damp the more it's raining, while her skin and clothes look wet as well. But again, only when she's actually out in the rain. And like for example on Toshara, small details are noticed with the wind. The wind will cause all of the floor and foliage to ripple in the wind, even making the trees bend and sway in the wind. And the thinner the tree is, the more it sways. Plus, containers like this will only see the wind affecting the parts where it's able to. You'll see the ripple effect on the parts where the straps are not touching the crates on the inside, whereas the straps here aren't moving because they're pulled tighter. So in general, Massive did a great job at making all of the cities feel so alive in this game. The streets are densely packed with NPCs actively walking around, talking, eating food, getting into debates, or doing some shady stuff.
Listen to yourself! You're stuck in the past, just like Father!
Seriously? We both know Toshara was better off without the Empire!
Oh, you mean lawless and dangerous?
You need to come with us for questioning.
Why? I haven't done anything.
We have records of you breaking curfew. That makes you a suspect.
And I think that is one of the coolest aspects about Outlaws, because most of my knowledge about Star Wars is the Jedi and the lightsabers, but this game actually lets you see and peek into the world of the underworld and kind of see the shady stuff people are doing in cities. Outlaws is encouraging you, the player, to explore and helping you get immersed into the world. They want you, the player, to read something and have to remember it. They want you to explore, to find some crafting materials early, or to discover the names or codes that will help you in the future for quests. For example, one of the main ways you can find side quests to do isn't just by a new icon on your map appearing, but there's also intel that you can gain by eavesdropping on conversations. When there's an important conversation you can learn something from, the characters talking will be a bit louder than the crowds around you to catch your attention. And the game will often give you a prompt nearby to like sit down or lean on a wall or counter to then listen in and pick up on what's being talked about.
I give up.
If you're looking for blaster parts, Lalini can hook you up with something under the table. He hangs around the back alley next to the market. Tell him, friend of Arlo.
But I don't know Arlo.
No. That's the password.
Then who's Arlo?
No one. Just forget it.
Hey, I'm looking for Lalini.
Do I know you?
I'm a friend of Arlo.
Arlo's been making a lot of friends lately.
The game gives you new side quests in the most immersive way possible, and for a lot of these, they only show you a general location on the map. The game wants you to explore the world and encourages that by giving you multiple ways to get crafting materials, get useful info for current or future quests, getting passwords to unlock a new vendor, or even finding out which alien horse thing, whatever these things are called, is going to win the race ahead of time. And I mean, they give you an upgradable speeder for a reason. That is your main mode of transportation around these large open areas, and the speeder is honestly incredibly fun to use. I kinda love it. Though I do feel that me admitting the speeder in Outlaws is fun is similar to when I said that the Batmobile sections in Arkham Knight were fun too. People didn't like that. Now granted, I played on controller for my playthrough, but it felt so good after just adjusting my steering sensitivity down just a bit. I was zooming like a pro, winning speeder races like it was nothing. And along with that, the music of the game is amazing. Whoever composed the score of this game knocked it out of the frickin' park.
Bartender, another round.
The music builds up to a crescendo at the perfect points, like taking off in your ship once you break out into orbit, landing in your ship, but it also has fluid dynamics to match the certain events, like when a battle starts or when you're being chased in your speeder. The sound design of the score is A+ for me, great job, and the sound design of the entire game deserves an A+ as well.
Hey, I think that actually worked.
And all of the NPCs that you can find in the game look fantastic. Even the weird ones look pretty good graphically. I mean, I have no idea what half of these aliens are, but the detail on them is immaculate. Like Sluggy Snail Dude enjoying a drink at the bar, weirdly hot purple alien chick with built-in handlebars as the bartender, or even good old Froggy Scrotum Neck. But don't let him sell you insurance. It's a trap. I think that's the guy. But because I don't know any of these characters, it was really interesting to get to know them. Except for these guys. They looked like humanoid fly people, and no. Like, amazing detail, but just a huge bag of nopers on that one. But even for someone like myself who doesn't know a ton about Star Wars, there was still certain things that I had seen in the game that even I could recognize. Like the droids that looked like R2, L2, R2, P2, whatever his name is, the small, round, white and blue droid, that guy. Like, I looked at those guys and I was like, oh, look at that, it's the droids. Or even the tall, skinny, chromy ones C4PO, like seeing the familiar droids, seeing the somewhat familiar alien races, or another one that I had seen was these little guys. I was mentally calling them Final Fantasy guys for a long time until I learned they're called Jawas. I don't know why I thought Final Fantasy when I've never played Final Fantasy, but yeah. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful with any of these names, I just don't know their actual names, and so that's where my brain just comes up with things like Froggy Scrotum Neck. But however, there was an alien thing that I encountered in this game that I was shocked not to see Meg's face on. If you know, you know. I also wanted to point out that this game has its own Heimsker as well. That's the guy from Skyrim who preaches and yells the whole time in Whiterun.
Do the elves take your homes? Your businesses? Your children? Your very lives? The future of Skyrim! The future of Tamriel!
That's this guy too.
The Empire is lying to you. Governor Thornton doesn't care about us. Just look at Miragana. They're bleeding us dry. They call it taxes. I say it's extortion. We can't let them get away with it. They think they can push us around? Well, we can push back.
He yells about stopping the Imperials and how we can't just ignore him or something. I don't really know. I just kind of ignored him the whole time.
Ignore me all you want. It won't make the Empire go away.
Massive has honestly just seriously outdone themselves with the passion and attention to detail they've put into the world of Outlaws. But now, let's go ahead and jump into the story section. Again, I will not be spoiling any of the story or story elements or events or anything like that. But I did want to share my thoughts and tell you how I felt about the story of the game during my playthrough. So the first thing I could advise people to do for the story is just to hold on and wait until the last third of the game. That's when things get crazy. Which I know sounds bad, but it's just the way Ubisoft does their writing. I won't say the story was awful, but in the beginning it was a bit more thin and felt like there wasn't really much happening even though I had played for a good 20 or 25 hours. It's not a direct problem with Outlaws, but more of a problem with Ubisoft and their focus on building a big, beautiful world, and then they just try to fill stuff in that world with a meaningful story. And games like Far Cry tend to have this problem as well, where the game feels slow and paper thin story-wise for a long time and then goes kaboom, and everything happens all at once. But if you do manage to hold on and wait, the last third of the story in Outlaws is honestly so freaking good and has some of the most incredible cutscenes with amazing feeling behind them. But Outlaws actually has extremely gorgeous pre-rendered cutscenes in them that look like those insane Destiny or Diablo style cutscenes, but it also has in-engine cutscenes as well. The in-engine cutscenes look pretty good on their own, and they do a great job of maintaining that overall cinematic experience that you'd expect from a Star Wars game or any game with a focus on the story. I would say the worst part about the story in this game is the facial animations, which are just bad. I mean, they're not like throw the game in the trash and go on an angry tirade on Twitter bad, they're just bad. They often don't match the characters or the NPCs, and they can sometimes look just straight up cheap, like it was a last-minute facial. Like it was a last-minute facial animation, so they just made the mouth open and close or something. But the best part of the story for me was the voice acting. The actress who voices Kay Vess, Humberly Gonzalez, does a spectacular job. There wasn't a moment where I felt she could deliver a line better, and honestly, there were a few times I was truly impressed with her raw emotion you could feel when she said things. So when Kay got mad, you felt the anger. When she got sad, you heard the voice cracks and just her holding back true just emotions. The way that she interacts with the characters around her is just fantastic.
Looking good.
Why, thank you. I am quite partial to this new torso. I only wish it had my head on it.
The moment you leave, the Empire's gonna throw everything they can at you.
We'll shake them.
If you don't, we never met. The fate of the galaxy could depend on it.
Man, you guys never stop talking, huh? Crimson Dawn seems to have eyes and ears everywhere. You think they could be listening to me, Andy?
Oh, they are. But don't worry. Nothing you say is important.
Wow. Okay.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! I don't want any trouble. Just looking for someone. Okay, okay. I wish I knew what that meant.
There were scenes where some seriously insane stuff would happen. I can only assume it's like the normal Star Wars level coolness happening around her. I'm talking scenes that had my eyes wide open, mouth dropped to the floor, going full pog clap. And instead of immediately being fine with it and pushing past it like most characters would, she is at a total loss of words. She's nervous, she is scared, she literally does not know what to say, and I was right there with her on a lot of that.
I'm not sure. I can't. Yeah, okay. We got a big problem. Slero just met with someone who... I don't know, he just tore the room apart. This is bad.
I didn't notice any writing tropes being used for her. I absolutely love it when characters are written in a normal way that people would normally talk, instead of trying to go out of their way to sound heroic or smart all the time. It's like having that sprinkle of being a real human in there. It's amazing.
Hey, Indy 5, get the cargo hold ready. Crimson Dawn are gonna deliver a shipment of ice to the ship.
Kay, I strongly advise against this course of action. Spice is a highly restricted contraband item that will only attract further unwanted attention from authorities and...
No, not spice. Ice. ICE. Frozen water.
I will ready the cargo hold.
Ooh, the security here is tight. You ever get through a defense system like that, MD5?
Yes, Kay. I fought in the Separatist War.
Everyone figured it wasn't worth the risk.
Except you.
It's a calculated risk, Kay. And I'm good at math.
Didn't quite get that.
Thieves have stolen my motivation actuator. Please end my humiliation. That's what the little guy said.
Aren't you gonna help?
Not my droid.
What did he say?
Please, Harry, my self-esteem is critically low.
But now, it's time for the performance side of things, which isn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. So if you're expecting the typical Ubisoft optimization here, it's actually pretty good. I have a pretty nice computer, which has a Ryzen 9 5950X, 32 gigabytes of 3600 megahertz RAM, and an RTX 4090. And on my computer, I was able to play the game at 4K resolution with everything maxed, and I was averaging about 50 to 60 FPS with the frame generation on. Settings like the RTX GI are super expensive to run in areas with lots of dense foliage, so I found my game dropping to about 45 FPS or lower when I would be in a section of tall grass. But the majority of my playthrough with these settings on, I was getting an easy 50 to 60 FPS at 4K with NVIDIA frame generation turned on. If I turned the RTX GI setting off, my frames stopped chugging down to 45 and I averaged about 80 or 90 FPS with way less micro stutters, and again, at 4K. I will make note that even on my PC, this build version of Outlaws uses like a buttload of VRAM on my GPU. Even with a 4090, I was seeing my VRAM going above 20 gigabytes. But closing the game and reopening it fixed that problem, and it only happened after many hours of continuous playing for like 10 hours or something. But that is something to consider, is that this is a fully current generation title utilizing high-end graphics technology. You should not expect this game to run on a GTX 1060 at 1440p with all of these settings turned on at like 120 FPS. This is a game designed for the Xbox Series X, PS5, PS5 Pro, modern PCs. Now, however, even if you don't have a brand new top-of-the-line system, there are plenty of graphical settings that you can adjust to help bring the frame rate back up. And with features like DLSS 3.5 and AMD FSR, you can enable frame generation for any GPU that supports those to get a huge boost to your frame rate as well. So now I want to talk about the bugs that I experienced during my playthrough. I actually kept track of any of the bugs that happened. I wrote down the big bugs that I saw, or bugs that were repeatable, and on that list I had 14 bugs, which, considering that I had almost 50 hours in this game, isn't actually too bad. But it honestly highly depends on your tolerance for bugs in games. The worst one that I had was when I got stuck in the mountainside and had to reload my second newest save. I lost about 30-ish minutes of free roaming, which, I mean, I was looking at rocks or something probably, so it's not that bad. So really, I would just say that the biggest determining factor for whether or not you personally would enjoy this game is your tolerance for small little bugs. For the most part, it was just bugs that I've experienced in other games. Like, other games have all of these bugs, none of these are unique to this game. But after all of this, what would I rate Star Wars Outlaws? I'd have to give it a solid 8 out of 10. It has a lot of great attention to detail, and I really enjoyed exploring this galaxy far away, but it does make some bold choices with its gunplay that I felt could have been done a bit better, and facial animations that were just not good at times. But again, if you have a higher tolerance for buggy games like I do after playing certain other open world RPGs and seeing mammoths falling from the sky, NPCs sliding everywhere, or facial animations straight up giving you nightmares, you will be fine in this game. Outlaws is an amazing video game that is only held back from being a truly generational game by the tiny bugs, possibly lacking gunplay, and bad facial animations. But a lot of these are really subjective. Some people might enjoy the gunplay because it's reminiscent of the, like, Han Solo feel. When I think Han Solo, I think of him holding a blaster. Like, I don't think of these big fancy weaponry. I think that would have been too far out there. And I think what Massive has done here to try something new and to reinvent Ubisoft's open world design is amazing. And I truly cannot wait to see what DLC will add to this game, or what a sequel will look like for this game. And I can confidently recommend Outlaws to anyone who has played any of the games like Starfield, Skyrim, Fallout, Tomb Raider, Assassin's Creed, Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon Zero Dawn, or anything similar to those. It isn't a 200-hour video game for most players. Instead, it is a nice, comfy 50 to 60-hour game if you want to platinum the game. It removes the Ubisoft quest marker bloating, copy and paste structure, and keeps all of the radio towers in Far Cry 4 where they have been, while also giving you an immersive, exploration and story-driven experience that I think a lot of people will have fun with. Massive clearly has a lot of love for the Star Wars universe, and it was a very fun experience for me as my first Star Wars experience in general.
Whoa, you're huge and cute. Oh, it fits. Let's just hope it works.
We've got a pretty fine deal going on with